There is a rhythm moving through your life, one that cannot be rushed, forced, or controlled. Welcome to Sacred Fertility Flow. I'm Ashley Holmes, holistic fertility coach and guide, and this is a space where you're invited to return to your body, your intuition, and your divine timing. Together, we explore what it means to become fertile in mind, body, and spirit so that you can move from striving into flow. Today, I have a very special guest joining me, someone whose story is deeply inspiring and one that I know will resonate with so many women navigating fertility challenges. Before we begin, I want to gently acknowledge that today's conversation may include discussion around fertility treatments, pregnancy loss, and vanishing twin loss. As always, please take care of yourself while listening and honor what feels supportive for you. I'm incredibly grateful to be joined by a former client, Nuria, who has graciously agreed to share parts of her fertility journey with us. She is one of the strongest and bravest women I know. Her path included secondary infertility, unsuccessful IVF attempts, making the decision to travel from Canada to the United States for treatment, and ultimately navigating both the joy of pregnancy and the heartbreak of vanishing twin loss. Before we dive in, I want you to know that this is your story to share, Nuria. Please feel
Thank
free to
you.
share as much or as little as feels comfortable for you today. And there's no pressure to revisit anything that doesn't feel supportive for you. So thank you for being here and for your willingness to open your heart to our listeners.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to kind of share my story and connect with others. And I know that, or I hope that others can feel that, they have the support, or there's others out there that can relate with them. Because I know when I went through my journey, I did not talk to anyone about it. I didn't share anything, not with friends, not with colleagues, not even with my family. Like, I didn't talk about it because I felt like no one would understand or no one could relate. Um, so I'm hoping that, I could share something that makes people feel like, yes, there's more of us out there than we think. And you know, we all have a story. We're all a storybook, I should say, because we don't know what anybody else is going through.
It's so true. And I would love for you to begin at the beginning of your journey for us today so that we can know what family building looked like for you. And so, with your first child, were you able to conceive that child naturally, or were fertility treatments a part of that journey as well?
So, with my first, I call him my miracle baby because once we decided that, we wanted to start a family, it wasn't something that came quick. We were exploring IVF. We had reached out to the fertility clinic here in Ottawa, and we were going through all the testing that you have to go through. And I became pregnant. So we did not need any sort of IVF, but we were in that exploration process. So he is my miracle baby. We were very excited.
Oh,
I was scared at the same time. I couldn't believe it. I was nervous. I was like, oh my God. It was something we wanted, I wanted, but when it happened, I was like, I don't know. My body was just I don't know. I was frightened about the whole situation. But today he's 7 years old, and after we had him, my husband's like, okay, once he's one, we're gonna have baby number two. And I don't know why we would even think that, things would happen so quickly and so fast that one turns one and baby number two comes. Doesn't work that way. Um,
I think
that's not
so many
how.
of us, we can have an idea in our head and a vision of what our fertility journey is going to look like, and often that is not the way that it unfolds whatsoever, and there can be a lot of obstacles to navigate along the way.
Yeah, I think for me, in my own experience and my own opinion, I think there's more to fertility than we think. Um, it's, I mean, so many of us have struggled with it, and um, so going. I'll go back before I give you my little rant on jumping through. We thought we'd have baby number two right after we had our first. Um, and I think it was maybe about 2 years afterwards, um, we began our fertility process again, took it seriously, did all the testing. We ended up with three IVF transfers. All three of them failed. There was an IUI transfer in there, I think, at the beginning, before the three IVFs. And um, that that experience was difficult on its own because while we wanted a second child, so my husband's an only child, so he was always adamant that, you know, we're going to have a second because I don't want my son to be lonely. He
Aw.
lost both parents, and for him, he's like, it's difficult when it's just one. And then Dylan got to the point where he's like, I want a sibling. I want a brother or a sister. And so after the third failed IVF transfer, that was the toughest one because for me, the experience became, it made me feel like, well, you're old and this is not going to happen for you. That's how I heard, or those were the words I heard from the doctor that was telling us the results of, you know, the 2 week period that you have to wait, and it's another failed session and go through all your charts and everything that's going on, and being told this is not going to happen for you. You know, egg quality is poor. um, Age makes a big difference. If you really want another child, you should look at donor eggs.
And how did that
And
make you feel?
I honestly, I had no words. I think I was just like, I just froze at the
Mhm.
conversation because I was like, you're telling me that this is it, that there is no solution other than, you know, seeking donor eggs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I felt like, oh my God, I don't know if I can process this or if that's the direction I want to take.
Mhm. That is definitely a lot to process in the moment and not something to take lightly.
No, so for me, it was hard, and I think I shut down. Didn't I didn't even share my feelings. Every time my husband asked about it, I shut him down. I was like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, leave me alone. Um, and it wasn't until that moment that he's part of a whole bunch of different groups, and he decided to post in one of his groups our experience, and he got so much support and a plethora of information from other people's experiences, what they had done, what had worked, what didn't, clinic recommendations, um, doctors being recommended, etc. And it wasn't until then that, you know, we had the conversation and he made a comment and said, you know, here we are, like a science experiment. If you repeat the same experiment over and over, expecting a change to your result, how is that going to work when you're not changing anything, to
Mm-hmm.
the methodology? It's the same thing. And it was eye opening because then we took a lot of the comments and other people's experiences into consideration. And there was a book that was recommended. I don't know if you've heard of it. It starts with The Egg by Rebecca Fett. So that was a really good book to read. So I read that book. My husband read that book, and a wealth of information in there. And um, that's when we decided to explore going to the US. You know, completely different clinic, different doctors, different mindsets, etc. So we went through that route. I had the 1 hour conversation with the doctor, and I could tell you, Ashley, it was mind blowing. The experience and that one phone call made me feel like this was possible. It was not impossible. They had gone through all my charts, like we had requested all of our charts, everything, so that the doctor could analyze them, have everything. And the conversation was, it, I was like, I felt different. I felt like, oh my God, I love this doctor, and I could hug her because very knowledgeable. Um, you can tell the experience was there. They they made you feel like there was a relationship, like a patient doctor relationship, that you can have a proper conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I want to say my experience here felt very cold. I was just, another person coming through that door. It didn't matter. Um, so that phone call would like change our lives, and we did explore other clinics here in Canada. Um, and went back and decided, no, we're gonna go to the US and stick to this doctor. The other thing about this doctor is that the holistic approach to fertility. Learned so much and learned about that through the book. It starts with egg, because there's so much to that science experiment, because that's really what it is. And the methodology that you apply, really very educational. Like, um, so going there, you know, started doing acupuncture, started going to a counselor to talk to my experience. And so explored other options to see what my body needed, because I felt like maybe I wasn't meant to have another child. My body wasn't meant to do it again. It was only meant to do it once. And all these thoughts in my mind, right? Just going through that I remember snapping at my husband, being like, why can't you leave me alone? Like, it's not gonna happen. And I was very negative about it, while he was optimistic. And he was like, well, if we do something different, if we apply these things, um, started taking different vitamins, and like the doctor recommended all these sorts of vitamins. They recommended the acupuncture, which I started acupuncture. And I can tell you, I still do acupuncture today. Um, and just changing the way, we eat, and just looking at our environment. There was so much to think about that
Mm-hmm.
I felt I wasn't educated before. And
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing, is education. And if something doesn't feel right, to maybe go with your gut. And it's something that I don't do very often. Like, I don't listen to my gut all the time. And my husband's very different than I am. And he's like, no, we're going to do something different. Like, if this is meant to happen, I know it will. And I was like, how do you know it's not going to? Look where we are. And like me
Aw.
being the negative person about it, right? And so, you know, we go to the we do the recommendations from the doctor. So what we ended up doing was we um, had 3 egg collections. So basically, we collected all our eggs, put them all in one basket, and
Yeah.
then see what happens there. So we did 2 here, and then we transferred the frozen eggs and frozen sperm over to the US. Um, and we decided to spend a few weeks there because we did the third egg retrieval there, um, just so that the third one, could have different embryologists, different clinics, different everything completely, just the way it was being handled, and that was the recommendation of the doctor. We'll get, you know, freeze your eggs first, and then we will do the embryos, um, see how many embryos we get, PGT test them. So we did a whole bunch of testing, genetic testing on myself, my husband, to see if, we carried any genes that could affect the embryos and the success of them. Um, Anyways, we ended up with 3 embryos, 3 successful, what the doctor said, beautiful, perfect embryos. In the 3 embryos, we ended up with 1 low mosaic, but the other 2 were perfect embryos. We ended up transferring 1 right away, and that did not take. And that's when I was really devastated because I was like, in my mind, I said, okay, here we are. We tried to change the methodology. I did acupuncture. I decided to address any stresses through counseling. And so I was really upset about it. I didn't want to talk to anybody. We had told family at that point what we were doing because we were gone for
Hmm.
for a while.
Yes.
So we did. I ended up telling my sister, and I never thought she would understand because she has 5 kids naturally, and so for me, I was like, I can't talk to her about this. I ended up telling her, and then I remember when she asked me after that 2 week waiting period, I snapped at her and I was very angry. I said, "Don't talk to me," and no fault, like it was just me reacting to the news and being upset and just thinking, no one, like thinking in my mind, you can't relate, so why ask me? Is what was the thoughts, right? So I was very snappy, very angry, I would say, um, after that moment. That it wasn't until I decided, I was like, well, if this is going to happen, maybe there's something more out there. Maybe there's something I'm not doing. And I remember just going on Google and just searching, fertility, just different type of keywords, and came across all sorts of sites and people's experiences. And I came across your site and I read it. And I remember reading it maybe 2 or 3 times. And your words resonated with me, um, because I was like, no one is going to understand. No one knows what I'm going through. And I think you have that on your site. You talk about, that feeling of no one knowing or understanding you. Um, and, you know, there being more to it than just, you know, having a child is more about the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I think
Hmm.
that's what connected with me because I was like, maybe there's more to it. And I had listened to a few podcasts then. I think I was more open to learning and
Hmm.
understanding the journey at that point. And I mean, this was a few months after I had processed all of this. And then my husband was thinking, okay, maybe we get a surrogate, because we ended up
Right.
having the conversation about a surrogate. And that's something the doctor also spoke to us about. That's also an option. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think the idea was more My husband was more open to it than I was, where I was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me. Like, again, there's nothing wrong with it, but for me, it didn't feel like that's the route I wanted. And and so I was like, no, maybe there's something more. And that's when I reached out to you, to be honest. And I have learned so much through that journey because I really, really do agree that it is the mind, the body, and the spirit all together connecting. And I will tell you, and I don't know if you remember, but I think you asked me about stress. And I was like, well, I don't really know what stress is because in my mind, in my body, I was not stressed. Today, I can tell you, I understand what stress means because there's so many stressors, like the morning chaos, getting everybody ready out the door. That is a form of a stressor.
Yes.
And in my
I
mind,
think
I was like, go ahead.
you're not alone in that. And so many women that I work with are just like, yeah, they're stressed, but they don't actually realize the degree of stress, the chronic stress, the compounded stress that has been impacting them this whole journey. And it's taking that step back and realizing, wow, I really am stressed. This is how I'm
Yeah,
operating and functioning day in and day out, and I'm not realizing it consciously.
that is so true. And that was me. Whereas like I exercise 7 days a week because, that helps me with stress. That is added stress on the body alone. And if
Hmm.
you're compounding exercise on top of everyday life, your body, your nervous system is inside is screaming, saying, whoa, you need to stop. But
Slow
we
down.
don't know. We don't know how and we don't understand it. Because I know that was me. Didn't understand it at all. And so I have honestly, like, I think this experience has taught me so much about learning and being open to learning and always being a student because there's so much out there that after, I spent how many months with you, Ashley, just going through yoga and learning and understanding the nervous system. What was it?
I
5, 6 months?
Yeah, it was 5 months, and then you were at a place you were like, I think I've got this. I'm good. And so I let you go and I let you be, and I just waited in the background in anticipation of what was going to unfold next. And then I remember you calling me. It was like the new year, and you had gone to the States, and you were like, I'm pregnant.
Yes. So I was at a point where, so we were at a point where my husband said to me, you know, I've hired a surrogate lawyer. Maybe we can start thinking about this more seriously because, time's just passing by. And I think
Mhm.
at that point, a full year had gone past since I think we were already like a year and a half after that fourth failed IVF transfer. And I remember sitting and listening to the lawyer have that conversation. And I didn't say anything to my husband. I was just going with the flow. I felt like I was just tagging along, just letting letting him, I don't know, continue his own thoughts about it without saying much. And I didn't say I disagree or I agreed or anything. And I remember getting off that call and thinking to myself, doesn't feel right to me. And I just let it sink on its own. And it wasn't until later in that a few months afterwards that I reached out to the doctor in the US and I said, you know, how much time do I need to tell you if I want to do this? Like, what do we need to do to move forward? And they were like, just give me the last date of your last period and when you think your next day one will be, and we can do a schedule and go from there. And I can, so we can start the meds right away. And I was like, okay. And I thought about it, and it all happened really fast because it was okay. Am I going to do this? But I think I felt like my body was in a different state because I had learned so much and just doing the yoga. And, I fell in love with yoga nidra.
Yes, you
But it
absolutely
was,
did.
it was my go-to. Like I still do it when I wake up tired. Like it's my
I love
go-to.
that.
But I'll go into yoga nidra in a second of how I use it and why I love it. But so I said to my husband, what if I do another transfer? And he's like, okay, when do you want to do it? Like he was ready to book flights, do everything. And I'm like, well, I already talked to the doctor and this is what we can do. He's like, okay, let's do it. And I think he felt like he needed to move fast before I changed my mind. He didn't want me to change my mind because he wasn't sure what state of mind I was in. And I will tell you, excuse me, I didn't express so much about what I was feeling with him because I also felt like he didn't understand. And
Hmm.
he tried and he reached out to people. And I know he tried, but I was like, no, no one knows. No one gets it. Like, this is frustrating.
Yes.
You
Thank you
know,
for bringing voice to that and for sharing your feelings because I feel like so many women are probably at home feeling the exact same way where, yes, you love your husband, you love your partner, but they're not the ones that their body is going through this, so they don't understand that at the
yeah.
same level.
And that's what it is. They don't get it at the same level. Like it's still exhausting for them because they they equally have to go through a lot of testing. Like he did, all the sperm testing that they have to do and making sure, they're also eating healthy, sleeping well, because it's also about the sperm quality. And
Yes.
that is something that is also not talked about a lot. And I feel like a lot of us don't understand that. Like a lot of us women who are going through this, and so we don't think they can understand, but I think they do in their own way. But I would
Hmm.
snap at them because I'm like, it's not you poking your belly with all these needles, you
Yeah.
know? And just the experience. And I will tell you, the experience going through the medication experience here was more stressful than doing it with the doctor that I had in the US. Completely different, where here it was all about every 12 hours on the dot. Do not miss it. It cannot be passed. It has to be right. If you do it at 12, you have to do it at 12 the next day or, at 6 p.m. This one, do not miss. And whereas the other doctor was like, no, I will not add stress to your schedule. We will simplify it. Gave a schedule, um, and would tell me, like, you take this one, you mix it with that. Basically, I was doing one needle as opposed to three different needles at three different times, like completely different experience. And it makes a huge difference because then I'm not stressed that, oh my God, maybe I need to carry this needle in an ice pack with me because I'm going somewhere. And if I'm not home by this time, then
Yes.
like
So
it's
many
just
things, so many factors of just your mind constantly going and trying to do everything right, do everything perfect, right? Because you don't want to make a mistake.
exactly. And that on its own stress, its own worry on your body that your nervous system is like about to explode because, whoa, there's so much going on that you have to do on top of your everyday life, going to work, other things that are going on. And so that experience, just the medication alone, I think made a huge difference. Um, And where was I going with this, Ashley?
You want to share about your positive test? And then I also
Yes.
had a message from you that said, I don't know why I'm so tired, but I went for a scan today and they told me it's twins. You would understand because you've had twins. And I just remember in that moment being like, oh my goodness. Yes, I understand. That's a lot for the body to carry and to move through. And then I would love for you to share as much as you feel comfortable with of what happened afterwards.
Yeah. So fast forward, 2 week period comes, I remember going to do the blood work early in the morning, and we're still in the US. And the girl doing the blood work asked me, she's like, so did you go buy one of those, pregnancy tests to see if you're pregnant? And I said, no, I've been through this rodeo before. I
Yeah.
am not, I, I said, no. I was scared again, but something inside of me at the same time that I had fear, I had excitement because something inside me said this time it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an Apple Watch, and I remember my Apple Watch one morning telling me something about my vitals and that, there was
Okay.
concern and I need to pay attention. And I was like ignoring it. It's clear, clear. But as I hit clear, I remember inside of me being like, my body's working hard. Like it's doing what it needs to be doing. And let me tell you, I did my yoga, my breathing exercises, everything through the whole journey that I was away from here.
Mm-hmm.
I If I felt tired, I would go and do yoga nidra because I knew that would reset my nervous system and make me feel relaxed and calm again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even before the transfer, I went for acupuncture and I did the yoga and my breathing exercises, and I made sure that my body was in the right place that it needed to be. Um, and so that 2 week period comes, we're pregnant. The doctor calls us later in the evening. So my husband's getting anxious, worried as well. But part of me was like, relax about it. Don't worry, doctor will call, doctor's busy. Um, and by the time they called, we got the news. It was exciting. And the doctor's like, your hormone levels are really high. Progesterone is super, super high. She's like, this could be an indication that both took, but we don't know until we do that first ultrasound. So you do the ultrasound at the 3 days after that 2 week period. So we did that ultrasound. We had come back home by then, did that ultrasound, and we ended up with the two heartbeats, very strong heartbeats. Everything seemed okay. Do the 6 week ultrasound. Everything is okay. Everything's looking great. Um, and we were still going back and forth with our doctor in the US. So we had asked for our charts so that we can share them and get the analysis from her as well. And everything was looking good. It wasn't until we went for the 12th week ultrasound where um, the technician then says, you were told you had twins? I'm like, yes. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I saw it on the screen myself. There were two heartbeats, everything. And the girl just opened the door and ran out and got another sonographer. And at that point, she didn't want my husband in the room. And my husband's like, I knew there was something wrong when I saw her run out and come back. And they made me go back the following day and said, maybe we just need another sonographer who's more experienced. Like we can't see. There's no there's no two heartbeats here. Like there's one. And I kind of knew that because I can kind of see on the screen, even though you can't really understand the screen, but it just something felt different at
Right.
that moment, and the worry in her voice and the way she was asking me the questions. And I will tell you, I think that I wasn't that emotional. My husband was very emotional,
Oh,
but I think I took it better than he did because for me, I think I was just grateful that there was still one there. And, for people who are going to listen and understand the quality of the embryos, um, I had one low mosaic, which is, an embryo that is not considered the best quality. So embryos, there's a chart of quality of the embryos. I can't go on to the details because I don't know how to explain it. But, I before we had that low mosaic embryo transferred, we had an embryologist and a genetics, I don't know what they're called, but a genetics doctor talk to us about it and make sure that, we were comfortable with transferring a low mosaic embryo because you don't know the outcome of that low mosaic. Like it's not a perfect embryo. So a lot can happen. And so we had to sign basically, and maybe because it's also the US, we had to sign a disclaimer that we were okay transferring this low mosaic embryo. So we had two, one perfect embryo and one low mosaic. And so my husband was curious to see which embryo I'd taken. So he wanted to know. And we had done the testing here. So um, the low mosaic embryo is the one that survived. So just because sometimes it's a low mosaic or it's a mosaic and not the best quality embryo, it doesn't mean it won't be successful or, you know, there could be a negative outcome. Like it's, you still have that possibility. Um, and I know the doctor for us explained um, that, you know, that we shouldn't worry too much about the quality of the embryo because they're still good embryos, even though they've graded them different grades in there. So we ended up with the low mosaic embryo being the one that took and the one that gave us a healthy baby, and now we have a healthy baby boy. That's he's going to be he's 9 months now, and he'll be one in August, and he's super happy and very healthy. So um, we had success with that embryo.
little
But
warrior, and what a spirit you have to go through that for all you have been through. I really just want to bow in reverence to you for sharing that with everyone today because you had a very, very tumultuous journey, and I'm just so
yeah,
happy from the bottom of my heart that
oh, thank
you're
you.
here having this conversation with me with two beautiful little boys at home, and
Yeah,
that you did follow your intuition and you did do what served you in the moment and really followed your heart and trusted your gut. And I'm just so grateful that our paths crossed and
yeah, me
that
too.
that yeah, I feel like there's a saying when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, and I have learned so much from you as well going through this, and it's a co-creation, right?
Yeah,
It's not a one-sided um experience where I'm just throwing stuff at you and you do what you want with it. It really is moving through it with you and addressing those things that show up that are hard, that are uncomfortable, that are unchallenging, and having those resources and the capacity to move through that. And you are just such a resilient person. I absolutely admire you.
Oh, thank you. I think I truly think that it's education and just, you know, being open to understanding our own journeys and learning from others. Um, because I truly believe that, you know, what also gave me hope was getting that information, the information my husband got shared, other people's experience and suggestions and, the book recommendation, understanding the impacts of our environment that could have um, not just in fertility, but if I go back and look at everything that I've learned, it's also for overall health, right? I still
Yes.
remember, one of the at the beginning, one of the conversations you had with me about protein intake and what your food of plate should look like. And at the time, if I reflect today, I would say, oh yeah, I was eating enough protein. But I decided to track, okay?
hmm
And I was not consuming enough protein, even though I thought I was.
I would
Um,
love to just step back in time because you're bringing this back for me, but were you not in the beginning when we started working together almost vegan or vegetarian? And when I was looking, because I always look at what I have you give me a food journal for a week, and there's no judgment, but it's just for me to assess what you're consuming and to make recommendations from there. And so that was one of the things that I kind of flagged right away was I don't think that you were getting enough protein in your diet, enough to nourish you, enough to nourish another life.
and that is so true. Like, and so, it wasn't, and it was more of a realization when I became pregnant and we found out that as twins, my husband became like, I want you to track your food. I want to make sure that you're eating well. You're getting all you're nourishing these babies, you're nourishing yourself the right way. That became the real realization about my protein intake. And let me tell you, today I am getting my protein.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think sometimes we think we're doing everything possible, but sometimes some outside eyes can give you more insight. And then, as well as for you to understand your Ayurvedic constitution and to have that insight as well was also probably valuable for you, not only on
Oh,
your
very.
fertility journey, but moving forward, right?
I still do, you know, not only do I do the yogas and the yoga nidra, but I still, pay attention to what I had learned about, if you eat your beans, you don't mix them with meats and you just eat your beans. So I still follow a lot of what I've learned because, like I said, it's not just learning for fertility, but it's also learning for overall health because it all applies. Um, you know, everything that all the changes I made to improve my fertility and to improve the quality of my eggs and that it is also to improve overall health because it is the same things that you apply if you want to live a healthy, nourished lifestyle. Like the
Yes.
way you exercise. Well, I don't know if you remember, but and I mentioned this earlier, but I used to exercise 7 days a week because I thought 7 days a week of pushing my body and doing weights and jumping up and down is what I needed to be relaxed.
hmm
not
and
understanding
healthy.
and healthy and not understanding that I was adding the exercise is an added stress and your body needs to recover in order to benefit from your exercise. So it's all connected.
I don't think that slowing down was as hard for you as some of my clients, but practices like restorative yoga and yin yoga can be counterintuitive to begin with because you're not doing, right? You are getting into these poses and you're holding these poses and you're breathing
Yeah.
into them. And so that in and of itself it definitely is a practice, especially for lots of people who are on this sort of strict or high intensity exercise regime of I need to be doing and I need to be sweating and I need to feel the burn, right? And when you are trying to conceive, you need to have that yin and that yang. You need to have that balance, and it can't be one-sided because I promise you it is not serving you.
No, it's not. And you don't get the benefits from your high intensity workout or your weights workout if you're not restoring the body. So restoring the body is repairing it from those stresses, right? It's and it's allowing your nervous system to reset itself, which is so important for our overall health. And today I've learned so much, like I said, that it is I continue to apply everything that I learned on the fertility journey today. Like I haven't gone back and said, okay, well now I'm done. And things can
That's
go back to
why
the old
it's
ways.
also because what's been seen can't be unseen, right? You realize that there is another path forward that feels better, that gives you better energy, that makes you feel like your best self, and so that you can show up in the way that you want to. And so
Mhm.
that's also why I work with people for a minimum of 4 months because these are habits, these are lifestyle changes. Nothing happens overnight, but I would
No,
love for you to share in your own experience, having one child and not doing any of these, and then having another one. Have you seen a difference in your pregnancy journey, in the way you mother, in your consciousness? I would love for you to just share, how this has really changed you in a holistic way in all aspects of your life.
I think I think it's brought awareness and I know how to as a mom I say no, but maybe I try better to, you know, educate and apply what I'm doing to what we do with the boys. Um, and and just look at things like you said holistically. And I think that was the biggest eye opening is understanding that there isn't just one way, but
Mhm.
that there's, you know, other ways and other methodologies that you can adapt to or you can add to your lifestyle. Um, like I said, I do acupuncture. So, my acupuncture, my meditative yoga, um, and, better health eating um, has all, I want to say, made me more rounded and have more energy, I want to say, and be more positive when it comes to, parenting the two boys and understanding. I think the biggest thing for me is applying those to the stress so that now I understand when I'm stressed and when I need to
Mhm.
go in and relax or just breathe.
Yeah.
Because if I'm stressed, sometimes maybe I could get snappy and I'm like, I don't want to be that person. And I tell my son, like, if I say something or that you don't like, or I'm not doing something that you feel is not right, I'm like, then flag it to mama because it's possible that I am feeling stressed and I'm reacting the way I shouldn't be. And
Hmm.
I think it's allowed me to be open-minded and be able to openly have those honest conversations with my 7-year-old. And he can honestly tell me, he'll say to me, Mama, I didn't like that.
My kid's favorite saying is, Mom, you need to go on your mat. I'm like, I already did today, but thank you. Duly noted.
Yeah, and
They
I think
are
it's
the perfect
important.
sort of mirror and reflect back to us, though, what we need to see within ourselves. But I know I'm
Yeah,
human. I'm not perfect. I have stress moments, but I also know that I am able now to consciously respond versus react in the moment and
yeah,
always feel myself take just a deep conscious breath and then respond. What can I control in this situation and what can I not control in this situation? Sometimes things happen and something's already done. So, how can we repair and how can we move forward from this? I think has just been very insightful for me to instill in myself as well as my children that I am conscious and aware as much as humanly possible
yeah,
of things that I say, the things that I do. They know that, and I try to be true to my word always. And so if I say, this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen, then I will move heaven and earth in order to make that happen. And so they can really feel grounded and safe and secure in that.
yeah. And I think for me, um, in a similar situation as you, Ashley, is, you know, through this learning journey, it's brought me into that state, you know, and being conscious and aware and just trying to be better.
I love that. We're always constantly evolving and learning. And is there anything that you would love to close with today that you would really want listeners to take away from where they may be currently at, and any of your words of wisdom that will help them to get back into their sacred fertility flow?
I think the most important thing that I want people to know is while you may feel alone or you may feel like no one around understands, know that there's so many of us out there that do understand and have gone through a similar journey because everyone's journey is unique to them. But, you know, I think through sharing our experience and maybe being a little more open to talking about it, um, you'll realize that others have also gone through something similar and they can relate and you're not alone. And secondly, I want to say is always be open to learning and exploring other options. Um, and if something doesn't feel right or doesn't connect well, um, then listen to that. I know it was difficult for me, um, but going through the experience is the only way that I learned, and I can share that um, is just listen to yourself, listen to your body, um, and just be open to learning and know that there's so many of us out there that share whatever you're going through.
I think that in the moment, sometimes it can be hard and we may not feel like we're able to, but I'm so grateful that you were here with us today, that you shared your story so openly and so vulnerably. And I am sending you and your family so much love. And one day I'm
Oh,
going to
thank
come to
you.
in person.
Yes. Well, we still want to visit BC, so you never know. We'll meet there.
Well, and if I make it that way, I will definitely let you know. But for everyone tuning in, the light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, and we will see you again on the next episode.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much.